Right, so we're back in the GCN Tech Clinic where I'm going to help solve your bike tech problems so you can get riding again in no time. Right, with no further ado, let's start with a question from Rob Bonney, who can't get his tyres to sit in the rims properly. And he says it's like riding on an oval wheel. Well, Rob, that is actually a more common problem now than it ever used to be. In fact, say 5 years ago, I can't remember it ever happening, but I could think it maybe is because you're using a tubeless compatible rim, and sometimes the bead of the tyre actually gets stuck and doesn't find its way into the sidewall of the rim to actually pop out into the correct place. So what I suggest is you fit your tyre and tube, obviously making sure that the tube is not pinched or anything. Get yourself a big bucket of soapy water and a sponge and coat the inside, so in between basically the sidewall of the tyre and the inner side of the rim. Give it a good coating. That will in turn reduce the friction between the sidewall of the tyre and that inside of the rim. And when you're pumping up the tyre, you should see it or even hear it pop into place. So whack it up to the maximum inflated pressure, and hopefully that solved it. Now another possibility, what you could do is inflate the tyre to around 40 psi and then have a look around the whole circumference and see if there's a low point on the sidewall of the tyre, and if there is, just work it backwards and forwards and try and get it just to pop up and into position. You'll normally be able to see that quite easily. It does take a little bit of force, but just massage it gently. It does, like I say, it does require some force, and hopefully it'll pop up. And finally, just make sure that your rim tape is even the whole way around the inside of the rim. Make sure that it's not doubled up somewhere, because that could be creating a high or low point. And next up from Jack Rigel, fraying brake cables. Jack hasn't really expanded much there, but I think I know what he means. First bit of advice here is you can bodge it, but I wouldn't advise it. When I say bodge, you could use a pair of pliers to cut a cable, but that's really not advised. To be honest with you, get yourself some proper cable cutters. They will last a long, long time. My own pair at home, I've had them for 20 years and they are still going strong because I only use them to cut gear and brake cables. These days with Di2, I only use them to cut brake cables though. Now, what you can do is, once you know where you want to cut the cable, is actually put a little dab of super glue, or just a small section, say 1 centimetre, around that cable, and then cut it smoothly and very fast. That's the secret to it really. It's just a quick snip of the cable. That way you're going to try and prevent any frays. Then, importantly, put a cable cap on the end and you should be good to go. Final one this week is from Nigel Slater, who's got himself some loose cones. Well, the good news is, Nigel, I reckon we can solve those loose cones, providing of course that the bearing surfaces are not pitted and damaged from riding with loose cones in the first place. So how actually are we going to do this? Well, let's take a look at it. I've used this because it's easier to show. In here we've got ourselves the adjusting cone, and basically that sets a preload of the bearings that would be in here on the axle. So as you tighten that, the bearings go against the hub shell, and in turn they create friction. If you do up that too tight, that cone, then basically when you turn the axle it's going to be a graunchy, rough feel. Too loose and you're going to be able to rock that axle around. So what you want is for it to be smooth yet not rock. Now that does take some getting used to, and you know, it can take a few attempts. Once you've got it to the correct tension, grab yourself a cone spanner. These are specific to the job. A normal spanner is very unlikely to get in that flat because that is very, very narrow. So grab yourself a cone spanner, fit it in there, and then you're going to have to be very careful with this. Obviously it's quite hard to show because I'm having to support everything in one hand. And then you work the locking nut against that cone. Now, when you work them against each other, the cone can have a tendency to become a little bit loosened. So it may take a few attempts, but you'll get there in the end, and the rewards are more than worth it. So get yourself a cone spanner and a decent wrench to actually lock them against each other. And apply quite a bit of pressure to one another so that they're there and they're in a solid state. Right, well, leave me your bike tech questions in the comments down below and I'll try and answer it in the future. And lastly, remember to like and share this video with your friends. And also, for another great video on how to care for your disc brakes, click just down here.